everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma231 here, back in data about World Trigger, chapter number 249. This chapter is titled The Away Mission Test, Part 41. And can you guys, finally believe it? We're finally done with all of that Rokuro, Wakamura stuff. We only had 4 chapter titles named after him. We're finally back to the meat and bones of this series, The Away Mission Test, Part number 41. I'm just, so happy. I mean, I am happy, but I'm also, not happy because it's yay, we get to be progressing, and it really looks like the Away Mission Test is finally culminating in a lot of ways heading into this chapter, as there's a bunch of rumoring in this chapter hey, the final special assignment, and a bunch of other ideas here to hey, we are getting very close to the end of the Away Mission, or at least the first part of the Away Mission Test, of course, the sealed environment phase. But, of course, that also means, I also just realized, whenever we get to, more of the guerrilla warfare, rank war stuff, is it still going to be called the Away Mission Test? Because it'd be really funny if it was, but also it would not be funny whatsoever. But knowing how World Trigger and Daisuke Ashikara writes his stories, I guess we're just going to have to sit down and wait and see. But either way, we have an excellent chapter of World Trigger here to talk about. Of course, all, 30-something pages of it? Let me quickly scroll to the end of the chapter. We have 37 pages, so this chapter is definitely a beefy one for sure. And this is also, of course, our chapter for March of 2025. Of course, we had 8 chapters in April 2025 too. Those are coming out. Those have already come out at the time of recording this, and we have confirmation that we are also getting chapters in May of 2025 also. So it's hey, we are getting really standard, just progressing along with the World Trigger story, which is honestly very, very awesome to see. But like I mentioned earlier, this chapter really goes away from everything of hey, all of the Wakamura plot lines with Squad 11, and really this chapter focuses on Suwa Squad 7. And also, halfway during the chapter, we also cut over to the leaders of Border and their meeting, and also get to look at a brand new character. But before we can talk about everything in this chapter, we first need to talk about what happened last time in World Trigger. Of course, that was World Trigger chapter number 248. And last chapter, as I've also mentioned a few times now, was really the wrap-up to the whole Hyusei and Wakamura sort of storyline, as we pretty much see different characters like Hanazaki and Sasamori talking with both Rokuro Wakamura and Hyusei about everything that's happened here. And then there was a massive middle section of last chapter, which is all about all of the various A-rank agents going through and doing their evaluations and hey, what did we think about all of these? How did Saeki and whoever else Miwa and Yonea think about everything here? Did they give them an uptick or a downtick? Or I guess some of those people were just reviewing scores that other people had given that the night shift of getting. It's Miwa and Yonea were actually sitting there and reacting to all the scoring done last night, right? We had a few nice moments with characters like Tokieda and Raizo until eventually we cut back over to Suwa Squad 7. We also cut into a few different squads, we saw Kodera's squad focused on a little bit. And Hoide is hey guys, we're moving into the next day of this thing's battle sim, so let's get ready to sort of take it on, right? And it's sort of with that note in Suwa Squad 7 that we really open up this chapter again, the Away Mission Test Part 41, Chapter 249, right? As pretty much we start off chapter with Suwa being alright guys, it seems we have a rule change coming. He's hey, check it out, I'm gonna forward it to all of you. And he sort of sends it over to all of course, his squad's computers. As we see that everybody's sort of reacting to this, Oki's okay, so if the squad budget is 1.5 times what it was yesterday, huh? As we even see what the actual rule change was, it's hey, additional rules, total squad budget increased from 12,000 to 18,000. A victory could previously be achieved by 2,000 points or more. The requirement is now 3,000 points or more, right? Of course, hey, multiplying everything by 1.5 times makes a whole lot of sense, right? We see that Kotori isn't very happy about this. She's blah, this sucks, right? And even Yui's just all right, well, we also, pretty much saw this coming from some of the previous days, right? So it was all right, guys, let's go ahead and get this thing started, right? As pretty much we see it is currently 12:30 p.m. and it's Suwa Squad 7's strategy meeting, right? And so it's all right then, hey, Mikumo, do you just want to go and take it from here? As Mikumo is just okay, will do, right? As Osamu just is hey, we'll be taking the same general approach to these battles as yesterday, right? Well, predicting our opponent's counter strategies and adding in a few additional response units, right? And Katori's like, okay then, so like what you're saying is Operation Big Bug Army, just like yesterday, and I really love that, like, hey, Operation Big Bug Army. It honestly does sound pretty intimidating, right? And Osamu's like, exactly, we'll just be continuing on with that, right? Based on our major wins yesterday, we can expect the other squads to show up with counters to our snipers and ranged attacks. So then the real roadblock ahead of us will be defense-oriented units propped up as mobile shields that can withstand our snipers' assaults, right? Pretty much like, yes, their snipers have the whole, like, very limited ammo thing, but that makes them very dangerous, and, like, so many of them, like, we all know what the whole idea of their, like, big bug strategy is pretty much, but that does make a lot of sense that, like, hey, with a bunch of shields, that can really ruin their general strategy, right? And Katori says, like, okay, so what you're saying is, like, and since we've purposely got a low ammo budget, damage sponges that soak up all of our shots will pretty much run us dry, pretty much, right? Someone's like, yes, you pretty much have it, right? So Samba says, all right then, so for those defensive enemies, we'll use this unit here. As we get a look at the visualizer, as we see this really interesting looking unit, which I'm pretty sure they give a name to, yes, they end up calling it the Rad Man. And we pretty much see what it is it is a rad head on a humanoid, very slender body, pretty much, right? And we even see that both, like, Oki and Katori are like, yikes, like, what is this freaky thing right here, right? As Osamu pretty much explains, like, hey, it's a unit that specializes in countering all of those tanks. But Katori's like, okay, but why does this thing have to be so creepy? And I'll agree with Katori. This thing is pretty creepy looking, right? And Osamu says, like, well, we don't want all of those are, like, all of the other team's bulky tanks coming after these guys, so I purposely designed them to set off alarms, right? And Yui thinks, like, oh, sort of like what Utagawa and Ninamiya squads did yesterday. Of course, as we remember to what their strategies were of, like, hey, Ninamiya used all of the, like, very big, like, armored, textured, like, pieces to make all of these big, like, fantastical designs, pretty much. And, of course, what Utagawa squad did was make all of the weird-looking Tryon soldiers based off of animals, right? So we have the bunny rabbit, the crocodile, like the weird pyramid-looking guy, like all of their other various units, pretty much, right? As Osamu pretty much says, like, hey, however, my personal budget allowance isn't high enough for this one, so Katori, I'm sorry, you're going to need to take the range, right? And she's like, okay, whatever. As we see it, this unit does have a budget of 873 points, and of course, Osamu's is only 600. That is not great, right? But Katori's like, okay, they seem like a big pain to create, and Osamu's like, it's actually pretty simple, but like, hey, I'll explain a bit. We get an explanation on how to create a Radman. Pretty much take the 6-legged template and add an additional layer of armor, right? Mold the additional bit of armor up top and sort of make a horn on the top of its head, then switch the main body to the bipedal template, and then slip the main body down. So overall, it does make a lot of sense, and it does also check out how we were able then to get to this point from like the regular 6-legged template, sort of like the Marmot looking thing, all the way over to the Rad Man, right? And Osamu just says like, hey, and as for stats, they should be geared towards a Vitals strike build. And we see that both Oki and Katori sort of know and don't know what's going on here. As Oki's like, and what is Vital Strike exactly? And Katori pretty much explains like, hey, sure, that Hail Mary skill. As we then see that Ui pretty much explains what it is, just saying like, hey, when an enemy unit is damaged, there's a set chance the target will instantly be destroyed regardless of the damage amount, right? And she's like, and we see that Katori's like, yep, that's the one for sure. I know about that one, right? As Osamu just is like, hey, so what I'm getting at here is we gut the attack rating of the asteroid and pour all of those saved stats into the Vital Strike skill instead. And it was like, so what you're saying is like, we're basically creating our guys with no standard firepower? As Osamu's just like, yes and no. All of those bulky tanks can withstand over 20 regular shots anyway, so we might as well rely on the low chance of an insta-kill instead. As we pretty much just get a visual of like, hey, all of these Radmans pretty much just going and attacking a big shielded unit, and then just one of these guys using a Vital Strike, which of course is a 10% chance of death. That's pretty much what it is, and instantly killing the thing with just one strike on the off chance, right? Oki's like, okay, well, I mean, that sort of makes sense, but like, if that lucky hit's happening only 1 in every 10 times, it seems like, honestly, the better option by far. And Katori's like, well, it's actually not that simple. The odds of rolling that 1 in 10 on any number of times across a set of 10 attempts is only actually 65%. Katori, I will believe that your math is true here, right? As we see the Oki's like, really that low? Well, dang then, right? But Katori's like, hey, either way, you really need to play more video games, Oki. You would understand so much more of this. Katori, there's a reason you are my favorite character in this series, and I think you're showing why you are right now, right? She pretty much continues saying like, hey, basically, you want to save up our sniper ammo for all of our other enemy units, so against the tanks, you're willing to gamble fisting. And Osama's like, yes, more or less, pretty much, right? Which also makes sense that they can have all of their big rad storm strategy, but also have these guys specifically built for the tanks, or the rad bands built for tanks, the big bug strategy for really all of the other sort of units out there. And pretty much he then just says like, hey, that said, I am concerned about our defense, so I'd like to have to make Suwa's units bulkier and use them to defend all of our new Radmans, right? And Suwa's like, all right then, like, that sounds good to me. So what you're telling me is we're mostly sticking to what we did yesterday. Plain, nice, and simple. I like it, right? But it's almost like, well, however, Vital Strike does come with one downside. And Ui is like, really? What are you talking about? And Osama just is like, it's Achilles' heel is shields. And Katori's like, what are you talking about, right? As he pretty much explains like, hey, refer to the activation requirement. It can only proc when an enemy unit is damaged. I ran a number of tests yesterday. I found that it can proc against additional armor damage, but it never deployed against shields. Which makes sense because shields are not the actual unit taking the damage, but instead are the shield taking damage, which isn't part of the unit. So this makes a whole lot of sense. World Trigger, I love you. So Oki's like, okay, that makes sense, like, because the additional armor is a part of the units itself, but shields don't really work the same way. Osama's like, yeah, that does seem to be the rule, right? As we see it, Katori's like, okay, then, like, what's the point then? Like, we saw plenty of shields in use yesterday. Like, and your creature's attacks will just be weak pot shots against shields instead. Like, that makes it even more of a bad gamble with, like, terrible odds. And Osama just is like, hey, more evidence went into my thought process, though. What can we say about additional armor? It's budget-friendly, and it's a tough one and done. Shields, on the other hand, can be used to guard allies and can be recreated once shattered. That's all in theory, of course, but in yesterday's matches, many units got destroyed as soon as their shields broke. Barely any of them bothered setting up new shields altogether. And it was like, okay, I mean, that is true. It's sort of, we remember some of these other images of like, hey, whenever Husei's Canadian bomber got shot down, it was like, hey, as soon as the shield broke, it got shot pretty much, right? As Osama just thinks like, hey, so if creating new shields isn't so viable, why not opt out for cheap and sturdy additional armor? I'm betting more squads will be taking that into consideration going today. And he's like, hey, but that's my prediction anyway. And Katori's like, okay, but still, you're relying on what our opponents decide. And so he's like, I mean, I guess that does cover the downside of the strategy, but like, hey, well, what else do you have, Osamu? And Osamu just is like, well, I actually have one more minor tactic. I mean, if you recall, that even when you max out the stats of the jamming skill, the effect only lasts for 2 rounds, right? Or for 2 turns, as he calls it, not rounds. I don't know where I got rounds from, right? But it's just like, hey, but say we have one use of jamming on turns 1 and 2, and another doing it on turns 2 and 3. That way we've got continuous, uninterrupted jamming. So you pretty much be like, all right, we have 2 of the jamming cat units pretty much, right? Sort of match, one of them does it, and then from turn 2 on, we sort of move on to turn 4. So it does sort of make sense, like covering all of your bases as far as turns goes, right? And it was like, okay, like that makes sense, like a jamming relay almost, right? And so I'm like, pretty much. The squads that lost to us yesterday are likely to be wary of an ambush on turns 1 and 2. So have a leg up on them if we can keep our units hidden for an additional turn past those first 2. And Oki's like, okay, so what you're saying is like, we're using their experiences yesterday against them today. Isn't that right? So I was like, you got it, my boy, right? They're saying like, hey, given our squad loadout, the jamming tactic is more of a budget-friendly option than equipping each unit with a radar stealth, pretty much, right? It's like, hey, with all the units having full stealth, it's very high cost, but with the jamming, like 2-turn, or the 2 jamming units along with them, it does make for more of a low cost in general, right? And so it's like, all right then, cool. Well, all these tactics should be plenty, so let's loosen up and get through all these matches, guys, right? And of course, the entirety of Suwa Squad 7's like, all right, Suwa, you got it, right? As we then cut to a bit over 2 hours later, as we cut into the HQ management desk, as we see a bunch of characters, really just 5 characters, all sitting here around their laptops, checking up on all the information of the day, right? We see Netsuki's here, Director Kinuda, along with Commander Kido, Kyoko Sawamura, who is the HQ Assistant Director, along with a new character who we have not seen before, but who we will learn his name in a second, is Ryoji Kiriyama, and he is a chief engineer and also a former board member, right? Which is, hey, pretty cool, and being a new guy here, right? But moving into the HQ management desk, we start off with Netsuki pretty much going like, alright guys, the first 5 of today's special battle simulation matches are done, and the 6th is currently underway. On the top of the charts, Murakami Squad with 600 points, and Suwa Squad is in second place with 450. After those 2, the runners-up are Kakizaki, Kitazoe, and Mizukami squads, right? Kinuda just says, like, we're also seeing a number of them employing similar tactics. Also, among them, Murakami is looking pretty capable to me. Besides, there's more time for still movement in all the various ranks. Checks out a whole lot, right? As he then says, like, alright, any thoughts, Chief Kiriyama? As we really see, like, what this guy's whole deal is, a new character. As Kiriyama's, like, just, well, I'm just happy that the Trion Soldier creation tools are working all well in order, right? And it's like, hey, we're not really seeing any major bugs, so my people are feeling pretty good about that right now. As we can pretty much understand, like, hey, it seems that he was the one who built the whole Trion system that, like, they're playing this entire game with. There is the question of, like, who built this specific, like, video game all of these people are playing for tactics to be able to go fight in space, pretty much, right? But we see, yes, it is Ryoji Kiriyama. As Commander Kido just is like, Chief Kiriyama, I believe that Director Kinuda was asking for your opinion on how the exam is proceeding, right? As he's like, hey, Kido, my man, that's a big ask for a simple tech guy like me. Stick me in all this formal setting all you like, but I still won't have any slick insights the way that Musa and Taku do, right? As the Masa that he's talking about is, of course, Director Shinoda, and the Taku is, of course, Director, was his name Takumi Rindo? It's Rindo, the Director of Tamakoma 1, right? Or the owner of the Tamakoma branch, all things considered, right? As we see Kido's just like, hey, Kiriyama, please, right? Kiriyama's like, hey, I'm sorry about all of that, but I guess Director Shinoda's, I guess it is Director Shinoda in this setting, right? As Netsuki pretty much just says, like, hey, you'll be supervising the upcoming away mission, so of course we'd appreciate your opinion. As Kiriyama just is like, hey, come on, Netsuki, supervising, I really won't be doing nothing much. That'll be mostly Soya and Maki, right? Who, I don't know if we exactly know the Soya and Maki he is talking about, but it could be like the A-rank members. I know we have the A-rank Maki, but I don't know about the Soya pretty much, right? But at this point, Kiriyama seems to take the job a bit more seriously and just says like, hey, well, fine, let me see here. Well, I'm guessing Murakami Squad will hold on to its lead and emerge on the top today, right? But unlike yesterday, they've all got a solid pool of tactics to be thinking about now. So those working with actual brain power should have the advantage this time around, right? As Kinuda just says like, hey, true enough, but compared to all of the other squads, Murakami Squad has perhaps spent too much time on counter strategies for the special battle simulations, right? Because of course, like, yes, Murakami's whole idea is like predicting and countering the counters of the future, as I named one of the World Trigger videos there in the past, right? And Netsuki pretty much is like an inefficient approach considering all the other assignments they need to be getting done, right? But Kiriyama then just says like, hey, sure, efficiency counts for something at least, but knowing when to toss efficiency out the window can also be a strength at time. And Netsuki's like, hey, I suppose you're right. Kinuda's like, hey, even though that can be a very hard call to make. As we then see Kyoko Sawamura then just say like, hey, well, on the other end of the spectrum, we have Suwa Squad, which didn't waste much time on strategizing for today, right? As Kiriyama just says like, hey, and when you pit raw effort against raw effort, the stronger side comes out on top, yeah? Like, hey. So instead, Suwa opted to work smarter, not harder, by scheming and making use of Mikumo's creative thinking. Imagine investing a bunch of time and energy into The Sims, only to lose. At least this strategy avoids that disappointment no matter what. Kyoko then just says like, hey, it honestly reminds me of Mizukami's squad's basic strategy of like, hey, having one person do it all. And we even see that Kiriyama's like, hey, yeah, come to mention it, I mean, you are correct here, right? He's like, hey, anyhow, there you go. And Kido's like, thank you for your answer. Like, I'm glad I had you here, Kiriyama, pretty much, right? as pretty much Kyoto just says, like, okay then, Director Kinuda, any updates on the combat phase of the exam? Kinuda just says, like, hey, we're nearly done testing all the additional rule, not that was ever going to be a problem to begin with, and, like, also, there are a few revisions to the rules on the whole, but those should all go out without a hitch, pretty much, right? And Kinuda's like, alright, that is very good to hear. Kyoku then just says, like, hey, are you guys talking about the new rules suggested by Captain Suwa and Kitora about putting operators on the field of battle? And Netsuki sort of says, like, I mean, Brand Chief Rindo and Jin were highly enthusiastic about that one also, but to be entirely honest, I'm not really sure. As Kino just says, like, I do understand your sentiment. As Kyoku just says, like, no, we should do it. I'm all in for it, right? Like, hey, it feels like a forward-thinking move to make our non-combatants more capable from emerging from the away mission ship, right? As we see that Netsuki's like, hey, come on, Sawamura, I'm only thinking of the crew's safety. As Kiriyama just even butts in and says, like, hey, the away missions up to now have been pretty sure this upcoming one is going to be the long haul, isn't it? Keeping folks locked in the ship could give them cabin fever, you know? And Kyoko's like, hey, that's exactly what I was thinking. And Netsuki's pretty much just, like, being driven into a corner with people who are not agreeing with him. As Commander Kido just is like, hey, there's still aspects of this I'd like to test first, but I'd appreciate your approval in the meantime, despite all of your doubts, Netsuki's, right? And Netsuki's like, yeah, okay then, forget I said anything, right? As we then see that, as Kido just says, like, oh, and by the way, Commander Kido, will we be proceeding with the final special assignment? As Kido just says, like, hey, given the agents we're working with, I shouldn't have much of an effect on the combat phase of the exam, so yes, proceed with it as planned. And Kido's like, alright, well done. As we then see that Netsuki's like, oh, look at that. The results of the 6 matches are in, or of the 6 round of matches are in, pretty much, right? And that is where we end off all of the Border Management HQ guys talking about everything with the away mission test, right? As we cut in back again to Suwa Squad 7, as we of course see, this is right after the ending of the 6-round matches, pretty much, right? As we see Katori's in here, he's like, God damn it, like, that really sucked, right? Oki's like, yeah, we almost had him there, right? And Osamus is like, hey, it doesn't matter, it is still a draw, right? As we see Suwa Squad 7's record for today so far, which is 3 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw, and also 1 break match, right? So, of course, we see that in round 6, they ended up getting a draw from, like, just the way they're generally speaking. As Yui just is like, hey, look at that, it's just like Mikumo predicted. A bunch of squads came prepared with a bunch of various defensive tanks, right? And Oki's like, yeah, and that Vitals strike skill is really hitting it where it hurts, right? And Tori's like, hey, I must say, I think we are just getting extremely lucky. As Osamu, we get a little bit of narration from pretty much Osamu's perspective, as he just thinks like, hey, our tactics worked well in the first half, giving us a lot more wins than I actually expected. But then, in the later half, our squad suffered 3 losses, back to back to back. As we see, they face up against Kodera Squad 6, Kuruma Squad 5, and Wakamura Squad 11, where they just lost in all of these various rounds, right? As we then see the outcome of these, and Oki's like, geez, like, today's taken a very drastic turn. Ui's like, yeah, there were far too many defensive units equipped with shields in all of those teams, pretty much. And Tori's like, hey, this is about what I expected given the odds and just really how lucky we were earlier. And like, hey, every squad is approaching things in its own way, so this was honestly kind of inevitable, right? And he's like, all right, next one, come on, let's do this whole thing, right? As we get more narration to saying, hey, but the next match made it very clear that our losing streak wasn't just a matter of probabilities. As we see they're fighting against Murakami's Squad 10, and we see that they're currently on the 2nd turn. As we see that, of course, all of these Squad 7 Big Bug Army are pretty much up on top of a rooftop, shooting down at all of the Marmod-looking units that Murakami Squad 10 is putting into use. And Oki's like, hey, hang on, are they actually, like, sturdy tanks, like, looking how they are, pretty much, right? And Katori just is like, hey, our sniper should pick a bunch of other targets to aim towards, like, hey, keep wasting shots, and we're just going to run out of ammo. We see turn 3, all of Suwa's various units are going in and attacking a few of these guys, but not really doing that much damage. As Osamu's like, hey, wait, we had it all wrong. There's an attacker in the mix that looked identical to all the tanks, which, of course, makes sense. This attacker comes through and destroys 2 of the Big Bug Army guys, pretty much, right? Earning them 411 points for each one of them, right? And Suwa's just sitting here and just says, like, hey, this is the same tactic that Kitazoe's squad used yesterday. And Osama was like, hey, we shouldn't judge solely based on appearances. Pay attention to how they move. And Oki's even like, hey, so they're close-range attackers and snipers. Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense. Or even says, like, hey, so they're... And Oki says, like, hey, so what you're telling me is they're close-range attackers and sniper skins? That's a little messed up, right? We then see that turn 4 is happening, and one of these... pretty much attackers things is moving up a building pretty much, and we see that some of these Suwa bugs end up firing at it, but it deploys some shields to block a few of these shots, right? As Oki's like, uh-oh, that one's a tank too, right? And Osama's just like, damn it, they anticipated just how we would react. And we see a few penguin-looking units that Squad 10 also made, firing some lasers that go through. And we also see that they are using the Vitals Strike skill also, as we see they destroy one of Suwa's units and get 1,171 points from it, right? And Kotori's like, what? Like, they're also running the Vital Strike build? And really, everybody seems to be a little shocked by this, and Oki sort of, like, breaks the silence by saying, like, hey, they had the same thought that we did, right? And Osama was like, oh, of course. He's like, I really messed up, right? As Osama's narration just finishes saying, hey, from the match's start to finish, we fell behind to a barrage of precise, effective tactics until we were down by over 3,000 points, leading to a loss. As we see the match over here, Suwa Squad 7 ended up scoring 5,816 points, while Murakami Squad 10 ended up scoring 8,889 points, right? Really scoring a bunch of these various units, right? Oki's like, man, like, they literally countered every single thing that we could have possibly thought to throw at him, pretty much, right? And Osamu was like, guys, I'm really sorry. My strategy wasn't so great after all then. And Oki's like, hey, why do you particularly say that, Osamu? And we even see that Kotori's like, hey, the strategy wasn't your problem, Four Eyes. It is all Murakami's squad fault. The squads that faced Murakami's squad before us came packing shields as a counter to the Vital Strike strategy, so we never really stood a chance. It's like, okay, if Murakami went up against Kodera's squad, if Murakami's squad went up against Kodera's squad first, then what happened whenever Kodera's squad first faced Suwa Squad with the same strategy? They had Suwa Squad pretty much beat out in that way, right? As we see that Ui's just like, so pretty much what you're saying is the match order is the blame, and that's like the general consensus that we get here, right? Kotori then speaks up and just is like, hey, but here's the thing, there's nothing you can really do about the match order, it's just another factor in the overall gamble, right? And Osama's like, no, I don't think what you're understanding what I'm talking about. The real issue is that once you know about Vital Strike, it is incredibly simple to counter it, right? And he's like, hey, I should have expected other squads to adapt the same tactic as me, and then chosen a strategy that wasn't so quite easy, to counter, right? And Suwa even just is like, hey, it doesn't matter, Osamu. We still have one match left, so if you want to beat yourself up, do it after we're done. And Osamu's like, yeah, you're right about that. I'm sorry, Suwa, right? As we then see match 11 versus Utagawa's Squad 1. As pretty much it's just like narration says, this opponent didn't come prepared to counter the Vital Strike strategy, so our hidden snipers were the deciding factor. This victory went just as planned. As we see the entire team's just like, woo, that was a nice big win, right? And Oki's like, hey, 4 wins should put us near the top of the pack today, shouldn't it, right? As we see their final record was 4 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. As Kotori's just like, hey, I mean, I guess it really depends on how well a lot of the other teams did today also, right? And with the narration just says, hey, like, hey, and with that, Day 6 work hours were finally over. As we see that Suwa goes through, takes off all of his headphones, just is like, all right, we've got the final scores for today. As we get a look at everything, right? And we see that Suwa Squad 7 is tied for 4th place here, right? So it does look like they are in the 5th position, but they're still tied with Kuruma Squad 5 for 4th place. As we see Oki's like, okay, well, I mean, we're tied 4th in the Sims. Like, that's not terrible, right? And we even see that Kotori's like, hey, and we're even ahead of Mizukami and Kodera squads, which is honestly good enough for me, right? As we pretty much see the rankings, 1st place is Murakami Squad 10, which does make a lot of sense. They were pretty much prepared for this. They ended up getting 6 wins, 2 losses, and 2 draws. 2nd place, Ninamiya. 3rd, Wakamura, Kuruma, Suwa, Kodera, Kakizaki, Kitazoe, Utagawa, Mizukami, and OG Squad, right? So it makes sense. I am happy to see that, hey, Wakamura made it into the 3rd place here with 4 wins, 4 losses, and 2 draws. It looks like they're still sort of taking on their draw strategy here pretty much, right? But Suwa sort of like takes a look at all this and just is like, hey, but there's not much of a spread aside from Murakami soaring to the very top of the list. As we pretty much see, like, hey, they have 960 points, but then really all of the other points are like, hey, 960, 660, 630, 600, 570, 540, 540, and then all the way at the bottom, OG Squad got 240 points, right? OG, you're not doing too good, right? And Suwa just says, like, hey, 4th place and 9th place are only about 100 points apart. As Yui just says, like, hey, today there was a red letter day for Murakami Squad, that's for sure, right? Vittori also just says, like, hey, it's the overall rankings that really mattered, though, especially since we spent more time on homework than the battle sims today, right? And Ui's like, all right, let's go take a look. As we then see these rankings, and we see that Ui's like, all right, well, that's good. We're still in 2nd overall, the very same as yesterday. And she says, like, hey, meanwhile, Murakami Squad jumped all the way up to 4th. Like, hey, that is extremely good for them, right? As you see, like, hey, 1st place, Mizukami Squad, Suwa Squad, Kodera Squad, Murakami, Kitazoe, Ninamiya, Utagawa, Wakamura. Wakamura is in 8th place, slowly climbing up. Kuruma, Oji, and Kakizaki, right? As we see that Kotori is just like, okay, well, hang on. How many points below 1st place were we yesterday, right? As we see right now, they're only about 600 points away. As Ui says, like, okay, well, like, yesterday the gap was 900 points, and today it's just 626. And Kotori's like, hey, right, so that gap still shrunk a bunch, right? As we see that Suwa has a very, like, cocky smile on his face, and just thinks, like, hey, in the big picture, we are still on track. And he just says, like, hey, and with all of those gains, with so little time invested, honestly, should give us a passing grade for the battle sims today, right? And Osama was like, hey, I am glad to hear that, even if my strategy really didn't work out how I was really planning it to, right? As Oki just is like, hey, like, what the heck are you talking about? As Kotori's like, I mean, what? As pretty much he's like, hey, and Oki's like, hey, well, just look at the rankings for today. Wakamura Squad is out for blood. As we see the Wakamura Squad is in 1st place for today with 1,920 points, making about a 500-point gap between Suwa Squad, who's in 2nd, and Wakamura Squad at 1st, right? We also just see, like, hey, it's Wakamura, Suwa, Murakami, Ninamiya, Kitazoe, Kodera, Mizukami, Kuruma, Utagawa, Kakizaki, and OG Squad, really rounding out all of those other points for, like, hey, who got everything today, right? And it was like, oh, yeah, look at that. Suwa even brings a point, like, hey, almost 500 points more than us. Like, how did they really manage that, right? And Suwa's like, hey, I mean, they didn't really fare much better than us in the battle sim, so, like, really the only explanation is, and Osama pretty much cuts them off and just is like, hey, those points must have come from the delegated assignments. As Kotori just is like, hey, well, maybe they were making, like, progress on all, like, the homework and stuff, just, like, after hours like we've been doing it, right? And maybe they saved up all of it for doing, like, one big bulk submission before today, right? And Osama's like, I mean, that could be it. And Oki even just says, like, hey, I mean, it looks like just everybody in all the squads is putting in this high amount of effort. And Suwa just is like, hey, either way, we're not changing our track. And he's like, hey, dinner crew, you know what to go do. As we see that it's currently Ui and Kotori's turn to go make dinner, as they get ready to go up and do it. And Suwa just says, like, hey, we have to put in some overtime also if we want to get this done. So Osama and Oki are like, all right, then, let's go over and get all of these various assignments done after hours. So we see that Ui and Kotori get up, and we see that Kotori walks over to the fridge and puts her hand on the try-on sensor to get it to open. But as she does this, she notices, and she's like, what is this? And she was like, hey, is everything all right? What's the problem, Kotori? As Kotori just turns around and says, well, the door to the food pantry won't open. As we see all of the guys at the general, like, desks and everything, they're just like, what are you talking about? And that is where we end this chapter of World Trigger on this brilliant note of, hey, the food pantry won't open. What is going on here? I remember whenever I first read this chapter, I was like, oh no, did, like, all of the power go out in the place, so, like, there's no supply into it? Like, is everything ruined on the outside and just, like, our characters in the sealed environment are, like, okay? But of course, as we will get revealed next chapter, this is the final special assignment. So, I know a little bit of a different thing, all things considered, but either way, it's still, like, I remember first reading this, and like I said, it's just, like, I didn't know what to expect, and of course, being that I now have the understanding of, like, hey, I have read the next 2 chapters, I know this is a assignment, pretty much, but either way, just a cool little note to end off this chapter on. And honestly, this is a very good chapter through and through, really focusing on Suwa Squad 7's sort of whole idea of like, hey, we're going to be making a Vital Strike build, and then also how it backfires, but also works for them at the end of the day, because like, hey, they didn't put too much effort into it, making their loss not that big of a deal at the very end of the day. Really makes sense, all things considered, going through here. We then just, like, also seeing all of the Border HQ guys talking with each other, really getting introduced into Ryoji Kiriyama. Again, like, I honestly do like that we understand who made the game that all of our, of course, B rankers are currently playing in the simulations. It is just, like, really cool in general to sit down and just see how all this is playing together, and I do just, like, genuinely like Kiriyama's design, and I just think that he's going to be a very cool character, just like pretty much pay attention to and just see where he shows up later. And also, if it seems like he'll be going on the away mission test, presumably, or isn't that what they said there? Oh, where is the wording there? And like, hey, oh geez, I want me scanned back to this chapter real quick. I found it here. Netsuki pretty much says, like, hey, you'll be supervising the upcoming away mission. So it seems like he is going to be going on the away mission as one of the few adults going in of all these other teenagers and college students who are pretty much going into space to fight aliens, pretty much. It seems like he's going to be a bigger deal there, so I am sort of happy to sort of see how he is. And being that he is a chief engineer, it does make a lot of sense to why he is also going, right? I also love the idea that, like, hey, we are progressing to the point where we are understanding, like, hey, the big second part of the away mission test, the combat phase, is going to be coming up soon. So, like, whenever we get done with the sealed environment phase, it seems like they're just finishing up all of the various rules on that, making all of their little changes, and that Kinuta is really in charge of all of that. Also leading to the idea of, hey, the final special assignment is here, and tomorrow will be day 7 of the away mission test, sealed exam, right? Or sealed portion of the exam, as I should say. The other half of this chapter, which is the later half, which is like all the battle sim stuff, not really my favorite part of the chapter, being it's just like a bunch of like, hey, we see all these Trine soldiers shooting each other. But it does really lead to the whole idea at the end of the day, hey, countering the Vital Strike strategy that Murakami Squad is using, and how it sort of backfires on Osamu and all of them. It does make a whole lot of sense. And also, I didn't point it out, but Osamu's got a really funny, like, ice cream shirt on this entire time. Honestly, the shirts are one of the best parts of the World Trigger series right now. It's just like, there's all of these random shirts of all of these stupid and random designs on them. I mean, going through this chapter, we see that Yui's has, like, a nice flower in the middle of it. Katori seems to be split into, like, 5 different, like, column sections with, like, different designs on all of them. And it seems like Oki maybe has, like, a weather vane or something on his shirt. And honestly, it seems like Suwa's got, like, this weird, like, hypnotic pattern of, like, a thing of, like, coffee or some cup on it. It's honestly, World Trigger's just funny of how they designed his shirts right now. But yeah. But again, with all that out of the way, I just want to thank all of you guys for watching this video on World Trigger chapter number 249. Again, this chapter was titled The Away Mission Test Part 41. So, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure we are getting the Away Mission Test Part numbers 42 and 43 next chapter, but honestly, I'm not remembering for 100% there. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, I've got plenty of other chapters on World Trigger on the channel. There'll be a playlist link down in the description box of this video with all of those pretty much chapter reviews in it. And that playlist will be linked in both the description box of this video and in the end card of this video also. But yeah, really for all that out of the way, just thank you guys so much for watching this video on, again, World Trigger, and I'll catch you guys next time for World Trigger chapter number 250 and chapter number 251. Again, this is chapter number 249, titled The Away Mission Test Part number 41. And yeah, I'll catch you guys next time. This is Glowplasma 231, signing out.